Good afternoon, everybody. So, welcome to our first Happy by Nature live lesson. It is great to see so many of you joining us today. We've got thousands of children from all over the UK, so a huge welcome to all of you. Now, I'm Louise and I work for WWF, and we're a charity working to protect endangered species and habitats all over the world. Now, today we're going to be talking all about forests, and I am super excited as joining us shortly is naturalist, explorer, and TV presenter Steve Backshall. Now, you probably know Steve from the BBC's Deadly 60, as well as many other fantastic wildlife programs. And Steve is our new ambassador, which means he's helping to support the work we do with young people. And we are really pleased to have him with us today. But before we get started, I want to let you know that we will be asking some questions throughout the session today. So if you would like to, please use the comments box and put in your answers. And if you want to say hi, do pop your name or your school name and your location in the comments, and we'll try and give you a shout out. And lastly, I know that some of you have already sent in some fantastic questions about forests. So thank you, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. But who is excited to see Steve? Can you give us a big cheer if you're excited? I don't think I could hear that. Come on, who is excited to see Steve? Give us a massive cheer. Fantastic. Wow. Well, you're almost as excited as me, and I won't keep you waiting any longer, but it's time to go live to one of our UK forests where Steve is out exploring. Hi, Steve. How are you doing? Where are you exactly?
Hello everyone. Yes, this is me, Stevie B, and where am I? Well, I am in the fabulous Lost Gardens of Heligan here in Cornwall. And as it's me, I couldn't resist starting with a little bit of deadly wildlife. So I'm going to introduce you to some of Cornwall's most deadly, starting off with this gorgeous little guy. So this is our common frog here, and our common toad too. And you can see the difference between the two of them is that the frog is sleek and is a hopper, and the toad is kind of dark and warty, and they tend to crawl on the ground. And the toads, they have what they secrete on their skin, something called bufotoxin, which is a poison. So there you go. I managed to find something deadly even here in Cornwall. Aren't they absolutely sensational? So there you go, you guys. Be free! Heligan. What is Heligan all about? Well, this is one of the most gorgeous temperate forests you could ever hope to see. And what does a temperate forest mean? Well, it's kind of a little bit like Goldilocks' porridge, you know, neither too hot nor too cold. It does, however, rain an awful lot, and the rain and the sunlight brings an incredible diversity of life. And what we have here are the two main types of tree. So we have deciduous trees. So those have a broad, flat leaf that they will lose right now this time of year. And because this is autumn, they call in the States the fall, all around me I have these leaves. The trees are soon going to have no need for them, so they're dropping them, they're falling to the ground, and they will all start to rot and bring life to this portion of forest. However, there are other kinds of tree too. So down there is a yew tree. That's one of our native evergreen trees. Over here we have the fabulous, famous and ever so prickly holly, and where you find holly, you're also going to find ivy. Over here we have ivy growing up this tree. Look at this, isn't this beautiful? This tree just completely wound around with vines and covered down here in this moss, which kind of soaks up not just the moisture, but the sound too. It's one of the things that gives these woodlands such incredible atmosphere. The songs of the birds all through it. There is simply no better place to be. Now, you guys have been sending in your questions. You are tuning in from all over the nation, from Portree Primary School up in the Isle of Skye, all the way down to Sennin, down near Land's End, and to Herries School as well, to everyone in Mrs. B's class, to everyone out there who is tuning in, a massive, massive hello. And let's start with some of your questions. First off, we have Isabel from Sheffield who asks, what's your favourite type of tree? There are so many to choose from, but I would say that probably my favourite is going to be the London plane. It is a giant deciduous tree, and I had the amazing opportunity to spend a night up at the top of the UK's biggest, tallest London plane tree. It was huge. It was like 45, 50 metres high, and all the way through the night, sleeping in my hammock, I had tawny owls coming and sitting alongside me. It was absolutely phenomenal. Next up, we have here from Thorndon Primary School in Suffolk and Ayton Primary at the Scottish borders, what is the deadliest or most poisonous plant you find in the forest? Well, you do get things like deadly nightshade, which is a lethal poisonous thing, but most poisonous really are going to be the fungus. So down here I've got some sulphur tufts. That is a harmless deer cap, but it looks almost identical to the notorious death cap. And that is without doubt the most poisonous thing we have in our forests. And really good reason why, if you don't know what it is, please do not touch these mushrooms and certainly don't eat them because they can be lethal. To any other fans of Deadly, I should say we have a new series out on CBBC and iPlayer now, and the Deadly Live Tour is coming all over the country at the end of October. Right, what else have we got here? What is the rarest forest animal in the UK, and have you seen it? From Rowan in Skipton, Yorkshire, and Ryan in the Sunshine, who is a big fan of Deadly 60. Well, the rarest is going to be the Scottish wildcat. So there's probably no more than about 20 or 30 of those left in the wild up in Scotland. I have been lucky enough to film them. They're really, really tricky though. What is my favourite forest animal? This comes from Northern Primary, from Trinity Primary School in Scolmersdale, and from Inverbroth Primary in Arbroath, Scotland. It's probably the pine marten. If you don't know what a pine marten looks like, it's kind of like a supersized stoat. Or actually, if you were to take an otter and they were to spill a whole bunch of ice cream down their front, that's kind of what a pine marten would look like. And they live in the forest, and I think they're awesome. Next up, we have from Samaya and from Dare House School near Slough. What is your favourite forest in the world and why? Well, I would say that I've been completely covered in them, filled with bear and lynx and wolf, and I think they are utterly awesome. So right now, I am off to find an ancient forest and hopefully an ancient forest tree. So back to you, Louise.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve, and we will go back and see how he gets on his tree hunt in a bit. Well, hopefully it will stay dry for him. Now, when it comes to forests, there are three main types, and they are all categorised depending on the weather where they are. And so, like Steve said, you have temperate forests, and they are not too hot or not too cold, and they have different weather seasons. And these can be in the UK, across Europe, in Asia, North America, and some parts of South America. And you also have boreal and tropical forests. Now, boreal are in places where the temperatures are often really cold, below freezing, and the types of trees that grow well there are more like conifers, spruces, and fir trees. So if you think about Christmas trees with small light needles, those sort of tough trees can survive really well at those low temperatures. So a quick check. Which one of these do you think is a temperate forest, like in the UK? And which one do you think is a boreal forest? So quickly, can you point wherever you are to the temperate forest? And now, can you point to the boreal forest? Let's see. So this is the temperate forest. I hope you were right. Give yourself a pat on the back if you were. And this is the boreal forest. So you can see it looks quite beautiful, like a lot of wonderful Christmas trees. So then also in hot climates, you have the tropical forests. And there are two types of tropical forests. You have rainforests and mangrove forests. So mangroves here are a particular type of coastal forest, and their trees have really distinctive roots that you can see there. They sort of sprawl above and below the water into the thick, muddy soils. And they're not only particularly brilliant at storing carbon, but they also sustain life for humans and lots of animals and plants that live in the oceans. Now, tropical forests are the warmest and often the wettest forests on Earth. And there are also they have more biodiverse environments than anywhere in the world. And that means that they have the most different types of plants and animal species living in them. So even though tropical forests only cover a really small amount of the world, they have half the world's species within them, which makes them hugely popular or important environments for all of us, and not just the people who live near them. And that is why WWF works to protect a number of rainforests around the world. So I have another question for you. Do you know the name of any rainforests? And if so, can you pop your answer in the chat? I'll give you a few seconds to share your ideas. Well, some of you may have guessed the Amazon rainforest. Well done. Maybe you've been studying about that. And there are lots of others, like the Congo River Basin rainforest, the Madagascar rainforest, and the oldest tropical rainforest is called the Daintree forest in Australia. Now, one rainforest area that WWF works in is in Borneo, which is in Asia. So, before we go any further, it is time to sit back, relax, and enjoy our own daily dose of nature. And while you're watching, see if you can spot any of the mangrove trees we were talking about. I hope you spotted the mangroves and also lots of other beautiful trees and animals that live in Borneo. And maybe you recognise some animals that live in the canopy or the forest floor. And if you've been learning about forests, then you may have come across those words before. So, all forests, wherever they are in the world, are made up of different layers, and different plants and animals live in each layer. So tropical forests have what is called the emergent layer, where particularly tall trees emerge or stick up above most of the other trees, and the trees of this layer have got the most amount of sunlight. So I'm going to give you a quick action to do to show the emergent layer. So put your hands up in the air. Okay, so for the emergent layer, hands in the air. Now remember the action, as we'll do one for each layer, and you'll need to remember them for the quiz coming up in a minute. So all forests also have a layer we call the canopy, which is like the roof of the forest, and it has lots of tree tops growing densely together or really close together. There's lots of fruit and flowers in this layer, which means that lots of animals live there as well. Now the action for canopy is putting your hands on your head. Okay, so try that now. Well done. Now then, a little bit further down, the canopy, under the canopy is the understory. And this layer is made from smaller trees and plants, and there's not as much sunlight gets through to the understory, so lots of the plants have quite big leaves to catch enough sunlight. And the action for the understory is putting your hands on your hips. So do that now. Well done. Now, at the bottom, you reach the forest floor, and hardly any sunlight reaches the forest floor, so it's dark and often quite damp, and not many plants grow there, but there's lots of dead leaves, which make it really good home for insects. And the action for the forest floor, you can maybe guess, is putting your hands either on the floor or you can touch your toes. So now we are going to play a game. Are you ready? I hope you can remember the actions. Now, this is called Where in the Forest, and the idea is you have to decide where these animals and plants live, and which ones live in the tropical forest and which one lives in the temperate woodlands, like here in the UK. So I'm going to show you the first animal now, if you're ready. So this is a leafcutter ant. Now, where do you think it lives? For this, I'm going to do first hands up. So hands up if you think it lives in a temperate forest. Okay, hands down. Hands up if you think it lives in a tropical forest. Okay, hands down. Let's see if you were right. Oh, I hope you were right. So it likes the tropical forest. Now, for extra, where do you think it lives? Show me your action, or show the action. Okay, if you are touching the floor or you're touching your toes, then you are right. Well done. The leafcutter ant, it collects green leaves to grow fungus that it can eat, and in its home is on the forest floor. So well done. Again, give yourself a pat on the back if you got that right. Now, next up, hands up. Do you think that this creature lives in the temperate forest? Hands up. And hands down. Now, do you think it lives in a tropical forest? Hands up. Okay. And lastly, which layer do you think it lives in? Show me your action. Okay. If your hands are on your head, you are right. It lives in the canopy, and it lives in the canopy of a temperate forest. So it would actually also be quite at home in a boreal forest. You may have seen this red squirrel. If you have, you're lucky. Next up, this is a harpy eagle. Where do you think it lives? Hands up if you think it lives in a temperate forest. Hands down. Hands up if you think it lives in a tropical forest. Let's see if you're right. Tropical forest. Okay, and lastly, do your action for which layer you think it would live in. If your hands are up in the air, well done. Harpy eagle lives in the emergent layer at the top of the tropical forest. They're birds of prey. They like to be right at the top when they can look out and see what they're going to eat, what their prey will be. Now, lastly, we have the speckled wood butterfly. Now, where do you think that might live? Hands up if you think it lives in the temperate forest. And hands down. And hands up if you think it lives in the tropical forest. Let's see if you're right. Now it lives in the temperate forest. And finally, show me your action. Whereabouts do you think it likes to live? If you have your hands on your head, then you are right for that one. This is speckled wood butterfly. It likes damp, dappled woodland habitats, and it lives in the canopy and the sort of little bit lower down of the temperate forest. So, fantastic. Oh, I'm going too fast. So well done. Now, it really does look like you know your forest very well, but we are actually going to go back to Steve now and see how he is getting on in Heligan and see if Steve has found any interesting woodland wildlife.
Yes, Louise, absolutely. We have seen and heard so much here this morning in the forest at Heligan. So we've had goldcrest, which is a teeny tiny bird, which will kind of sit in the palm of your hand quite easily. And then a lot of the common stuff like blackbirds, magpies. Right now, it's almost spookily quiet. But one of the other amazing things to see this time of the year is as our forests start to be a home for decomposition, for things breaking down, it's the best time to go out looking for fungus. That might sound like an odd thing to be chasing in a forest until you get a look at beauties like this. So these are rosy bonnets. They've kind of got a faded crimson hue to them, and you can see there where they've been munched on by slugs and snails, but it gets even better. So on this log here, we have turkey tail fungus, so called, because it looks like the tail of a turkey. We've got sulphur tufts, which are these teeny tiny bright yellow wonders here. Over here is a bracket. So brackets, you find those classically growing on the side of trees, and that is a really, really good sign that things are starting to break down, and all those nutrients are going to be returned to the soil eventually. But this is a new one on me. They call this table tennis fungus or ping pong bat fungus, and this does not belong. So this has only been here for about 10 years. This beautiful, beautiful bright orange fungus probably came from somewhere like Madagascar or China. It is invasive, it doesn't belong here, but you gotta say, it's still kind of gorgeous. Now, to attract some specific kinds of critters to come to us, overnight we've had what's called a moth trap out. And what that is essentially a light which will attract flying insects, specifically moths, to come in and check it out. And they are in here. I'm going to take my life in my hands by taking the top off this. I have no idea what we've got inside here, and most of them are probably going to fly away the second I take this out. But let's see what we've got. This is one of my favourite things to do. Oh, there goes our first one. I think that was a crane fly. Yes, so that is what some people know as a daddy long legs. If it's got wings, it's not a spider. It is in the fly group. And yeah, we've got lots of moths in here actually. It's surprising what can be attracted by something as simple as a light. And one of the most remarkable things about these moths is that many of them will only stick around one particular kind of food plant. Some of them may not feed at all as adults, and really their main job is for the males to go out and find females. Oh, there goes another one. One of my moths has just flown away. But that one, look at that, beautifully sitting there in a perfect model-like position. What else have I got? I've got an emerald here. Am I going to manage to get that out? Or is that a mother of pearl? Oh no, it is an emerald and it's gone! I lost my emerald. Oh well, it was a good start. Right, well, what we are mostly here for today is to talk about trees. And I am by an absolute beauty. So this giant tree is one of the most impressive things that you'll find in this forest. And the first thing we need to do is to figure out what it is. So how do we ID a tree? Well, first thing we're going to look at is the bark. The bark on this particular tree is very, very textured. It's got these furrows, the gorges running down the center of it, and then the leaves. So right now in the autumn, these leaves are going to be losing their color as the tree draws up the chlorophyll from the inside of the leaf, and they'll start falling. And this is surely one of the most recognizable leaves you'll see on any tree in this country. It's got these lobes, kind of like the lobes on our ears. There are several different kinds, like the sessile, the holm, the turkey, the English, and they are native to this country. One other thing that we can find, lots and lots of them around on the ground right now, are the seeds of this particular tree, and we classically call those acorns. So I'm guessing by now you've got a pretty good idea of what it is we're looking at, because this is an oak. Now, I'm going to be answering some of your questions. I've got some fabulous questions coming in from all over the nation, first of which is from Theo in Broadhempston. And he says, how can you tell the age of a tree without cutting it down? So the without cutting it down bit is kind of the crux of the matter, because it's easy if you've got one like this that's already been cut down, because using a science called dendrochronology, we can assess the age of the tree by looking at the growth rings. So through a year, during the summer, the tree is going to grow a lot, and then in the winter, it's going to essentially shut down. And so it forms these growth rings, and you can count those, and that's going to tell you how old the tree is. But there is a method for trying it if the tree is still standing. It's going to grow approximately 1.5 to 2 centimeters a year. So if you can measure the circumference, we've done that with our wibbly wobbly oak, it's around about 4.5 to 5 meters in circumference. Well, that works out as it being somewhere between 300 and 350 years of age. Now, it's often said that an oak tree will spend 300 years growing, 300 years living, and then 300 years dying. And arguably, that last 300 years is the most important, because it's going to be providing food and a home for so many different kinds of animals. Next up, we've got another question from Inverbrothok Primary, which is in Arbroath in Scotland. Hello, you all. Asking, what's the oldest tree you've ever found? So we've got plenty of oak trees around about where I live that are around about 800 years of age, but that is only just getting started. Some of the redwoods that are found in America can be 3,500 years of age. There's even one particular tree found in Sweden. It's called Old Gico. It's a Norway spruce, and it was nearly 10,000 years of age, which just completely blows my mind. Absolutely amazing to think the changes that tree has gone through. You know, it was here, it was around, it was growing during the end of the last ice age, which just is insane. Next up, this is a cracking question from Linvale Primary and Thorndon Primary. Linvale's in Scotland, Thorndon is in Suffolk, and they ask, what is sap made from? That's just an amazing question. Sap is made of two different kinds of sap. One is called xylem, which is water and minerals. The next one I'm not going to be able to say very well because it's phloem or phloem, which is made essentially of sugars and sucrose. And sap is kind of like the blood of the tree. So it's going to be carrying all the nutrients around the tree, enabling it to grow. And a healthy tree is going to have plenty of that sap flowing around inside it. So later, a bunch more of your questions, but for now, it's back to Louise.
Thanks, Steve. Some great tree ID tips there. And remember, if you want to try and do some more tree ID or just get out and explore the patterns and the colours and the shapes of the different tree leaves, you don't have to go far. You don't have to be in the countryside. There's forest areas in parks and playgrounds, and you maybe even have trees in your school or on the street near you. And all of those trees in towns and cities are the urban forest. So wherever you are, you should find some different trees to test out your skills. And this is a fantastic time of year to do so. And if you can also find lots of useful tree ID books or perhaps a tree ID app to help you. And we'll put a few suggestions of ones that you might like to try in the comments. Now, let's see who has been really listening and test your knowledge with a quick forest recap quiz. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and then you can put A, B, or C into the chat. So let's see. How many different species can rely on one oak tree? So hands up if you think A, 20. Hands up if you think B, 200. And hands up if you think C, 2,000. Okay, so teachers or at home, see which was the most popular, and you can pop that into the chat. Let's see the answer. Were you right? So 2,000, a huge amount of species can rely on just one oak tree. Amazing. Next question. Trees that lose their leaves in autumn are called A, evergreen, B, deciduous, or C, tropical. Okay, so pop your answers in the chat. Which was the most popular answer? Okay, let's see if you were right. Deciduous. So trees this time of year in autumn, lots of deciduous trees are dropping their leaves. Next question. How much of the world's land is covered in forests? Do you think it is A, half? Put your hand up. B, a third? Or C, a quarter? Okay, I hope you could see what was the most popular answer. Let's see if you were right. Fantastic. Well done. So if you got, how many did you get right? Can you work out your total? So it's a third of the world's land is covered in forests. So now we have got even more great questions coming in for Steve. So I think it's time we go back to him. Let's see if he's ready to answer some more of your questions. Are you there, Steve?
Of course I'm ready, Louise. I was born ready. Yeah, I am here in Heligan right now in the glorious Lost Gardens, and super exciting that I've heard that we have now people tuning in from all of the nations, from Scotland, Northern Ireland, England, and from Wales. Diolch am y croeso, diolch yn dda iawn. So good to hear that nearly 2,000 separate entities, mostly schools, but also, you know, let's shout out to the homeschoolers too, because I know you guys, you are hard at work right now. I've got loads and loads of questions. First one has come in from Clara in Tintinhull, Somerset, and she asks, what is the biggest forest in the world? And it's obvious, right? It's the Amazon. Or is it? Well, yes, it is. But there is a slight complication, which is that the boreal forest, the northern forest, sometimes known as the taiga, which stretch all the way across Russia and Alaska and much northern Canada, if you were to join all that up together, that would be even bigger than the Amazon. So that is theoretically the biggest of all forests. Next up, what have we got? We've got from Saxon Primary, Shepperton, Surrey. How many deadly animals are there in a forest? Well, short of actually going out and counting them, I have no idea. And as you've heard, there could be hundreds of species just living in and around one single big tree like this, and some of those are so obscure. So Louisa was mentioning some of the apps you can use to go out and go looking for animals. I went out with my little boy Logan using the Seek app, and we found a parasitic wasp living right by my house, and I had no idea what it was. I'd never seen it before. I've been doing this for like 40 years, and it only parasitizes one particular kind of moth, which absolutely blows my mind. We've got from Northern Primary in backup Lancashire. What's the most dangerous or deadly animal in a forest? Depends which forest. So if you were in the Amazon rainforest, obviously it's going to be something like the jaguar. If you were in the forests of the Congo and Gabon, maybe it could be a leopard, or it could perhaps be a puff adder, something like that. But actually to us as human beings, it's always going to be the parasites, things like mosquitoes, because of the diseases they spread. A super question here from Boss Kenwyn School in Cornwall. So that's all the way down at the very end of Cornwall. Why do rainforests have so much rain? It's actually quite complex. So tropical rainforests are in equatorial areas, so they're near to the equator. They tend to be very warm. The air holds a lot of moisture, but also the trees themselves, through a process called transpiration, are also giving out lots of moisture too. So you can see the clouds just growing around these rainforests, and it does lead to a huge amount of precipitation, which is the posh word for rain. What is the hardest wood? From Chris Hipwood. That's a great question. So there's lots of possibles for this. Classically, it would have been something called mahogany, which is a very hard, dark forest wood. But also things like the ironwoods as well. You know, I've been lucky enough to I spend a lot of time living up trees. I know that makes me a little bit odd, but sleeping at the top of a tropical ironwood tree in Borneo. And they're called ironwood for a reason, because the wood feels as hard as iron. Thorpe House School. What is my favourite reptile and why? How am I supposed to choose that? I love reptiles. It could be anything. I'm probably going to go for the king cobra though. Biggest, longest, most venomous snake in the world. They can get to be 6 meters in length, and they can hold a third of their body length off the ground when they're standing up, which means they could stand up and look me in the eye, which is just plain frightening. This is a beautiful lyrical question from Isla in Tomintoul in Scotland, which I think is near the Cairngorms, and she says, this is just pure poetry: if you had a magic time machine, which lost animal from the forest would you most love to see walking past your tent at night? Well, if it was here in a British forest, it would be a wolf, because that's one of my very favourite animals in the entire world, and we had those just a few hundred years ago here in our forest, and there are, you know, always talks about bringing wolves back to the UK. Very complex topic. If it was around the world, I'd probably go for the thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger. Not actually a tiger, it's a kind of marsupial that looks kind of like a stripy wolf, and those are from Tasmania and New Guinea. They disappeared in about 1938, and you know, there is still plenty of genetic information out there that makes people think they could bring the thylacine back, or there could even potentially be lost populations of thylacine hanging out in Tasmania somewhere, which is an amazing idea. Nusabaya in Leeds asks, which forest has the most snakes? Well, if you look at the latest series of Deadly 60, which has only just come out, it's on CBBC, we go to a place called Ilhas das Cobras, which is the island of the snakes, and it is exactly like what it sounds. It has the highest amount of venomous snakes per square metre of anywhere on Earth. They are absolutely everywhere. It's a really good one here from Becky Murray, who asks, how many species live in the rainforest? It is an enormous amount. And the most exciting thing about it is that we are still discovering new species all the time. I've been lucky enough to work on expeditions where we've gone to rainforests and far-flung parts of the world, and we've always discovered completely new species. One of those in a volcanic crater in New Guinea was the Basavi giant woolly rat. It was about the size of a border collie, so it was about that sort of size, and it just sat in my lap grooming like this, completely new species of the science. Every single time we have studied one single rainforest tree in detail, we have discovered dozens of new species, and most of those are small, the little things like spiders, but every once in a while you'll come up with a new snake or a new frog or even a new mammal. And what I like is that that could be something that each and every one of you could discover in the future. You know, that is an opportunity that any one of you can have, and if there isn't one thing that isn't going to drive you towards a career in conservation or biology or zoology, surely it has to be that. There are still so many things out there for each and every one of us to discover. On that subject, I have one here from Henry and William in Somerset, who say they want to be the next Stevie B. Well, I'm sorry, but that job is taken. However, if you keep studying, if you try really hard and learn as much about the natural world as you possibly can, then this could be your life. And what could be a better way of spending your days? Okay, well, a serious question here from Indigo in Erith. Hello, Indigo. And also from Northbrook Primary in Lancashire. And they ask, how do trees help in the fight against climate change? So there's two parts to this. The first of which is that trees are really important in removing carbon gases from the atmosphere and in sequestering that and binding that up in their material. But perhaps the more important part is that if we cut down trees, deforestation, where trees are cut down on a giant scale and where they may well be burnt, that is going to release all of that carbon back up into the atmosphere, and that is a major driver of climate change. So anything which is going to lead to deforestation is going to be a big problem as far as climate change goes. I've got one here, inevitably, being as this is, you know, my deadly forum, which asks, what is the scariest experience I've ever had? Well, I would say it was probably diving on the bottom of the Okavango Delta swamp in Botswana and coming face to face with a hippo. It was no more than a couple of meters away from me, and in that moment, I think, well, it looked at me and it had clearly never seen a human scuba diver before, and because of that, I got away scot-free. But I think I was very, very lucky. Anyway, you all, I am so chuffed to hear how much you want to learn about forests. And, you know, we all have a woodland not so far away from us, even if we live in an urban environment. So get out there and explore it for yourself. You never know what you're going to find. And that's all the very best from me, Stevie B. Back to you, Louise.
Thanks, Steve, and thank you for all your amazing questions and also all your lovely comments. And sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions, but I think Steve did a pretty good job at getting to a lot of them. And you have all been amazing forest explorers. And I really hope that you're feeling inspired to get out and explore some of the forests and the trees near you. Now, you might want to try joining one of our new Feel Good Forest Trails, and they are self-guided walks, and they're all across the country at Forestry England sites. So you can go on our website and you can have a look at the map and see the closest one to you. And you can also carry on exploring forests right from the classroom. So teachers, if you haven't already, you can go onto our new Happy by Nature hub for a host of forest activities that we really hope that you enjoy. And it's not just forests. We've also got lots of resources on polar regions, and we will soon have oceans and UK wildlife too with their own live lessons. And our next live lessons will be about polar region. So make sure you are getting our newsletter so you can see when the next one is announced. And if you haven't already, don't forget to sign up to receive your free Happy by Nature classroom pack, and you will get a beautiful classroom poster, stickers, reward charts, a panda stamp, which we're very excited about, and lots more. So we are now, I'm afraid, coming to the end of our lesson, but we have been recording today, so we will be putting up the recording on our website, so you'll be able to watch it again if you'd like to, or you can recommend it to your colleagues or your friends. But we will also email you with all of the links that we have mentioned today. But that is it for us now. And till next time, stay happy by nature and goodbye. And I hope that we will see you all again next time.